Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hey Teddy, have you noticed how little attention science and health issues get in the media?
Totally, Edgar, yet science information is very important.
Yeah, for sure. That's why the Health Journalists Network is here.
How can they help?
They are a group of journalists dedicated to advancing public understanding of healthcare issues through impactful reporting on health and science.
Oh, really?
Yes, they meet up every month with scientists and researchers, policymakers, and activists at the science media cafes. They then relay what they discuss to the public.
Does that benefit us?
Oh yes, very much so. This helps with health and science literacy for a healthy Ugandan society.
Okay. I love getting informed about science and health issues. Health information makes all the difference between life and death. I'll look them up and engage them.
That's great. They are based all over the country.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, and they should be making real impact.
They are empowering health communities through journalism. Journalists can save lives just like doctors.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
I want to suppose that it's a good evening. My name is Norman Tumuhimbise. Every Friday at 5 p.m. we are with opinion leaders, politicians, to mention but a few, on Face the Nation. Our show today, we are grateful to have Mr. Moses Isooba. He's the ED, the Uganda National NGO Forum. And he will share with us, of course, what's happening in the NGO and or the civil society world. And of course, following his brief interview with us some time ago, you people asked us to bring him back so that he can share at length what is happening in the NGO world, and of course, here locally and globally. But before I dive into the real topical discussion, I want to ask Mr. Isooba to say hello to our viewers, and then we shall proceed from there, sir. Say hello to our viewers of Digitalk TV, sir.
So, good evening, all the viewers of Digital TV. It is my singular honor to be invited on this show and to be able to speak to the nation about an important sector of civil society in this country. So, we'll look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Isooba. A quick one. There are those new people that have had the Uganda National NGO Forum for the first time. Why was it founded in the first place? This animal called NGO Forum.
So the Uganda National NGO Forum was founded in 1997. Okay. The civil society sector in this country, for those who might not know, is quite very old, and it dates back to pre-colonial times. You know, many people may be interested to know that trade unions, cooperatives, mission hospitals where many of us were born, mission schools where many of us went to school, all that are part of the larger civil society. And so what happened is that in the 1980s, we had quite a huge number of, perhaps not huge, maybe let me say limited. And then and we had a bit of international organizations. But then after the war, after 1996, when this government came into power, then we had quite a huge number of international organizations, humanitarian organizations that came into this country. And largely the work was really in the relief supply and humanitarianism. And then the 1990s, we saw quite an emergency of what we now call today as advocacy organizations, advocating for aspects of human rights, advocating for aspects of environment, and many others. And so it was during the 1990s, 1997 to be specific, that the Uganda National NGO Forum was born. And it was born as a platform that brings together both the national organizations, national NGOs, and international organizations in this country. And the idea was really to be able to be a platform that can influence governance and democracy in this country. The reason why are we focusing on governance and democracy? I know there are a number of NGOs, many of them are in tree planting, others are in welfare, others are taking care of orphans, but we're totally persuaded that governance of any country is pivotal for the social development of a country. And so it is important that we look at aspects of governance because, yeah, I mean, that's really most important in terms of addressing the social development of the country. Anybody will tell you that if you go to any country, if you want to know if a country is developed, you look at three things. You go and look at its bus terminal, you go and look at its national referral hospital, and you also go and then look at the headquarters of the ruling political party. As a social scientist or a political scientist, the way those three stand will always give you an indication of how the country is being run. But how do we ensure that we're having the road, bus terminal, right infrastructure? How do we ensure that we're having the right national referral hospital, health infrastructure, and and then the governance about the politics of the country? All that is about governance, and that's why NGO Forum places a very high premium on governance of the country, and we bring together. Now we are having a membership, we're a membership organization as well, because we have about 750 members who come together. Now, make no mistake, not all these are in governance and democracy influencing. Some of these are in, water and sanitation, climate change, agriculture, environment. But we tend to always say, look, the connective tissue of everything is actually governance. And so we service both the members, but also because we're a platform, we are the interlocutor, we are the connector between civil society sector and the government. If anybody in government or Minister of Internal Affairs wanted to talk to an NGO in this country, they will come to us. And then we will actually be able to say, okay, this is what we do. And because of that, as Uganda National NGO Forum, we sit on different government committees, and we take there not the voice of this secretariat here, but we take there the voice of civil society in this country, because we are an interlocutor, we are connecting the civil society sector and the government, and that's why we're in those spaces. That's why we are being called on by government. We are in those spaces, and we work closely with the government in those different spaces to influence governance or the overall development trajectory of this country.
Thank you, Mr. Isooba. There is what confuses so many people out there in line with civil society organizations and NGO. What's the difference?
Okay, I mean, oftentimes the NGO, we have the NGO, we have the CSO. Yeah, sure. NGO being non-government organization, CSO being civil society organization, and then sometimes you find people are just saying civil society. Yeah. I mean, largely in terms of the development of, you would have the state as one arm of development, you have the private sector as one arm of development, and then you have civil society as the other arm of development. And then oftentimes you look at the media as well. And so when you're looking at the development trajectory of any country, you're looking at these three actors. You're looking at government, which is the state, you're looking at the market, which is the private sector, and you're looking at civil society. Now civil society occupies that space between the citizens and the government. So we are the connector there between the citizens and the government. And so we can actually use civil society, largely speaking, to refer to citizens in totality. But when citizens mobilize and organize themselves into associations, then you now add an O, which becomes the civil society organization. So it's also possible that citizens can mobilize themselves to form political parties. Now that is the political society. When political society organizes itself, it forms political society. When civil society organizes itself into organization, it forms civil society organization. And so that's perhaps the broader thing. But then increasingly now the nomenclature that you often hear of is non-governmental organizations. And do we take the non-governmental organizations because, as I said, we're just occupying the space between the state and the citizens, and we are playing a complementary role to the government. Is government registers or also decide to deregister organizations. So we are non-government organizations. But as again, there's also a bit of a problem.
So it's just a thin line between the. So there should be, that means there is a thin line between the NGO and the civil society organizations.
Largely speaking, we use the two quite very interchangeably. CSOs, civil society organizations, and NGOs. We use them interchangeably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let me take you to what people consider as conflicts, and not once or twice have either watched you or your predecessors or even other EDs of NGO organizations, and saying that there is a conflict between civil society organizations and the government, in particular Ministry of Internal Affairs, and where, of course, later alone they even had to bring a law and, of course, bring a bureau, the NGO bureau. What causes such conflicts in the first place?
Okay.
Are you saboteurs, like the president calls you, that you're agents of the West?
So first of all, let me try to debunk the negative narratives and maybe demystify some of these things. I mean, there is no conflict between the government and civil society organizations. I mean, there would never. NGOs play a complementary role to the government. The government decides who to register and who not to register. And so in that kind of relationship, there can never be a situation that you're having a conflict, because we are not at par. We do not, right now, politicians who are going to form a government are traversing the country soliciting for votes. They are selling their programs. Civil society is not there. We are not voted. We are not moving the country to solicit. So, so it's completely different. It's completely different. But what you're calling conflict, which I said it's not conflict as such.
Is it basically misunderstanding between the two?
I think one is that, and there is something in a name. You hear NGOs are non-government organizations. You hear they also being called non-partisan.
Yeah, sure.
You also hear them non-profit. You also hear them non-political. You hear them, so there's a bit of non. Now it's important that you always know there's a name. My name is Moses. When you find a little kid on the street and say, what is your name? If that child is David, the child doesn't say, I'm not James.
Mention the word.
The child says, I am James. Now the fact that we always say, I'm Nani this, I'm Nani this, that means there's a problem of identity. Who exactly are you? And when you say you are non-profit, you are non-partisan, you are non-political, you are non-government, the question is, who are you? Yeah. And then you then see people throwing anything on you, and whatever they throw on you will stick. Yeah, sure. So there's also a bit of narrative that is being used. So for instance, when you say, oh no, the NGOs are non-profit, and say, yeah, but you are using that language because you understand profit from a commercial, commercial narrative, a commercial perspective, using commercial metrics. Okay, you are looking at MTN, you are looking at Stanbic, you are looking at Coca-Cola, and that's how they define profit. Now, civil society organizations, we do make profit, but it's not. You have to understand it not using that commercial metrics. When we go in communities and we're empowering young people, youth empowerment, we go in communities and we're changing people's livelihoods, livelihood improvement. We go in communities and we're changing environment. This is profit, and that is social profit. Yeah. So you need to create a clear distinction between the profit as understood by us and the profit using the commercial metrics as such. Now, we say, okay, we are, people say, oh, you are not political. And so look, when you are deciding to put a borehole in Machindye and not in Gaba, that is called sharing resources. And that is a political decision you are taking, to put a borehole
here, not there,
or not here or not there. So it's not true that we are not political. We are political because we are talking about distribution of resources, but we are not partisan. You don't find an NGO that says, no, for us we support FDC, we support NRM, we support UPC. No, we are about improving social indicators of our people. The last I checked, an NRM woman, when he goes to hospital to give birth, the labor pain she goes through is the same as the DP woman. The UPC woman who is suffering from malaria is having the same pain as a woman who is NUP. So this partisan doesn't create any sense. We all want good road infrastructure. We all want schools where children can be taught. We all want good health infrastructure. When you have an accident and you need treatment, it doesn't matter your political affiliation. So for us, in terms of our engagement, it's not partisan because that doesn't make sense. But let me perhaps point the point where you're saying when the NRM government came in power in '96, you will recall that we had a period where we had no political parties, and we had a movement.
10 years. Then.
So now, oftentimes, when you have no political parties, there is a tendency to define the country as being one party. And oftentimes, when our government was being challenged, are you one party? They said, no, we're not a one-party state. We are a movement system. They said, no. Because you don't have anybody keeping you in check, you are one-party state. They said, no. We have people who keep us in check. Who are those? Civil society organizations. So since then, even when now political parties came back, the Baganda would say, government yalemeramu local.
Of the movement system.
The movement system. Where civil societies were considered to be the ones that were opposition. So yalemeramu local. Because they are now political parties. There is NUP, there is FDC.
And you check all of them in any case, whether opposition or...
Exactly. So we want to say, and that oftentimes, perhaps when government, when people in civil society begin raising up questions about health system, about education system, about provision of public goods, they say, oh, these guys are now
they are pro-opposition.
Or pro-opposition, which is not right. And many times I've spent a lot of airtime trying to debunk, demystify those negative narratives about the sector.
Isn't I don't know, you preempting my other questions, but then we cannot run away from the facts. Aren't there some times where you have been in conflict with the government? Because I want to give you a precedent of the closure in courts of DGF, for instance, and so many other organizations. I think some good months ago, there is a list that came online and of course both in the print and online media about the deregistration of so many of your members. What do you call that if it's not conflict?
But you see, you're making a reference to the Democratic Governance Facility, DGF. DGF wasn't only supporting civil society organizations. It was also supporting a number of other government agencies.
Yeah, sure. And then,
so when you close DGF, you're not closing it because you're gonna, you have an issue with civil society. Because DGF was actually supporting government agencies as well. I'm not privy to any relationship that existed between the DGF and government and why they were closed. But it's not right to presume that DGF was only supporting civil society. No, they was supporting across the board.
Would you consider its closure as politically motivated?
I mean, you see, depending on the time, because it was closed in 21 during the time of elections, and because a number of civil society organizations, especially governance, accountability organizations, were involved in the funding, I mean, one would think that, oh no, the closure of DGF is politically inspired. But the question, the point I'm trying to say again, is that if DGF was supporting a number of government agencies, can it be politically inspired that they actually government is is cutting off?
They were giving you more money than government.
Good. Well, I mean, maybe
they're giving you more support than government.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that we try to change. When the government says, oh no, because organization X has gotten money from donor Y, so you are foreign agents. They say, no, that's not true. Because civil society organizations receive money from foreign governments. It could be Netherlands, could be Denmark, could be Ireland. These governments, we see their embassies here. Also, government receives money from these agencies. Are we saying government is a foreign agent? No,
I think
government can't be a foreign agent.
Mr. Isooba, the question the government has
yeah.
is that whereas such foreign governments give the Uganda government money, to the government, they use that money to serve the purpose and the programs of the government.
Yes.
Unfortunately, though, the government thinks that you receive money to disturb them.
But that's a wrong narrative. That's a wrong narrative.
What do you think?
And you know, when we get money, if that money is given by donor X to go and have 10 boreholes, you'll go and count 1, 2, 3, 10 boreholes. If that organization is working to have that, you know, you'll find that that's what they've done. And you know, NGOs are regulated. Yeah. There is a regulator, the NGO Bureau. And so anybody who puts NGOs and say, oh no, NGOs, you are doing this, it's an indictment to the NGO Bureau, because there is a regulator who regulates these organizations. You cannot wake up in the morning and say, oh no, you know, business on Kampala Road, do A, B, C, D. There is a regulator who does that. Okay, you know, and NGOs, you know, they are regulated. NGOs, they are a plethora of regulations that manage and regulate the sector. You know, NGOs are filled and, you know, employing Ugandans who are law-abiding. You know, who pay their taxes, who pay their pension, who work in communities, who are audited like anybody else. If anybody, even you, if you want to, as you go down, please feel free to, can I look at the audit books of this organization? And it will be there. These are books that are in the public domain. So sometimes I think people may get into an overdrive, make multiple assumptions, but I think it has been our work to continually work with government. If
I may ask you on behalf of our viewers, Mr. Isooba, why do you think government considers you anti-government? As most of the CSOs and NGOs, why do you think government considers you as anti-government?
No, I mean, I wouldn't know. That would be a good question for the government to answer why they consider civil society organizations.
Put yourself in their shoes.
But anybody, I think it's a natural reaction that anybody who asks you the why question, you actually think is anti you. You know, if you are coming from Kampala, you are going to Jinja, you are around the Mukona, and someone says, why are you going to Jinja?
Why don't you want me to go there?
You say, why don't you want me to go there? You know, the preference would be for you to be a free traveler who just goes wherever you want to go. But we're actually saying civil society organizations are citizen organizations, and government, if you look at the Constitution, the first section of our Constitution, on it clearly says the power is for the people, and the people ask these questions, and that's why as a country we have elections after 5 years. You know, we're having elections in January, and people are going to be making a decision that, look, we gave you a job for the last 5 years, you performed well, we are extending your tenure.
Or otherwise.
Or you didn't perform well, we are terminating the contract. And so during the process, when they've actually lent you this power, you are their servant. And because you are, you're going to have to answer certain questions. And so it will not be right to say that whoever asks you a question is anti-government. In actual sense, I'll turn it around. That anybody who asks you a question is making you to deliver better and be able to get your contract extended. Okay.
You mentioned the NGO Bureau. In your view, do you think they are living to the expectations?
I mean, the NGO Bureau is...
Because for some reason, Mr. Isooba, some members now from your sector, this side, think that it's a tool established by government to also fight you. So like that's why all this entire discussion goes around the conflicts. People from your side think government established NGO Bureau to fight you. Government thinks you established yourselves to fight them. So which is which? Is the NGO Bureau doing its work?
Yeah, the NGO Bureau is doing its work. I mean, the sector, as it were, is a dynamic, multi-layered, vibrant sector. And no doubt, such a sector needs to be regulated. The only challenge, and you know, the private sector is regulated as well. And the only challenge is when you move away from regulation to controlling the sector.
What are they doing? Are they regulating or they are controlling?
That becomes a problem. So before I respond to that, you know, as a sector, we are fully aware, and we tell the entire country that it's important to comply. Compliance is first and foremost. Even when you don't like the law, you have to comply. Even when you think that URA is asking for more money, first of all, pay the money to URA and then go and take them to court. So the thing is that as a sector, we need to comply. We need to comply to the administrative and legislative requirements of the state. That's a given, because we are non-government organizations regulated by that government. And so we need to comply, even when we agree. We are one of the sectors which is heavily regulated. We have about 17 pieces of legislation that regulate this sector. And so we have to comply. And there's no problem with compliance. But as I said, the challenge often comes when a number
beyond regulation to controlling.
When you move from regulation to control, when many of the laws are weaponized. Weaponized in the sense that they are simply looking at a sector, and at any one time they want to get you and be able to fault you. And suppress you. So I think that becomes a problem.
Is NGO Bureau trying its best to regulate or rather to control?
I think the NGO Bureau in the circumstances is trying as much as possible to regulate the sector. But I mean,
are there traits of control?
There are multiple pieces of legislation. Now, some of these, like the NGO Act 2016, NGO Act that's the law that basically provides you or gives you birth. But other regulators and many times when people are talking about regulating or controlling the sector, oftentimes we point at the NGO Bureau, forgetting there are multiple regulators. We have the Finance Intelligence Authority.
Yeah, sure.
We have the URSB, the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. We have the Uganda Protection. We have the URA. We have so multiple regulators. And that in itself, when you have multiple regulators, rather than having a one-stop place where people can actually be able to answer this or that, you create a sort of a situation of controlling. Because if you're an NGO that, like Uganda National NGO Forum, we're here in Kampala, we can afford multiple visits to FIA, we can afford multiple visits to NGO Bureau. But imagine you are an organization, a small organization in Bondibujo, and you've got to take a bus. Because the NGO Bureau is not digitalized. And yet we think that if they were digitalized, a person should be able to sit in a Bundibujo, should be able to sit in Amur, and then be able to make these submissions online. It doesn't have to come. So it is some of these pain points that create the impression that the NGO Bureau is actually controlling the sector, because everybody has got to make a pilgrimage to the NGO Bureau in Kampala and say, oh no, you have brought all this, but you're lacking receipt X, go back. And so you find that it increases the administration costs of this organization. And if you're not an organization that even has a compliance officer, you find that because of the multiplicity of legislations and administrative requirements, it's very difficult to cope up with all this. And that becomes an extra burden. And so it draws energy, it draws time, it draws resources, rather than being out there in the field and working with communities and improving their social indicators. You are busy up, running and down to these different regulations.
I have this for you, Mr. Isooba. I know for a matter of fact that you have in-house engagements as NGO Forum with the stakeholders. Do you raise these concerns as mentioned, and if yes, what do they say?
We do raise up these concerns on a quarterly basis. The Uganda National NGO Forum, together with the NGO Bureau, organizes what we call quarterly meeting with the Minister of Internal Affairs. We've actually since moved from just meeting with the Minister of Internal Affairs, and now these quarterly meetings meet specific regulators. It could be meeting with the police, meeting with the military, meeting with URA, meeting with all this. The idea is to provide a space where the sector can then be able to have these conversations. Because at the end of the day, whether somebody is in URSP or somebody is in the police, I think we are all for the development of this country. And sometimes what we want to try to remove is the misunderstanding that one sector is working for and one is not for. And we've been in these spaces and we've had very open conversations with either the Minister of Internal Affairs himself or the state minister. We've had meetings with the Electoral Commission where they've come to this quarterly meeting. We had meetings with URA, and then sometimes you find that things are all, it's like a light bulb moment. People come to understand this differently. People come to understand the sector differently. I think what we actually invite the government, the private sector, for people to understand civil society and understand that civil society is not a saboteur, it's not an economic saboteur. Civil society is part and parcel of the development of this country, and at the end of the day, it is in the interest of civil society to develop this country, you know, because this country belongs to all of us.
Okay, we are with Mr. Isooba, the ED, Uganda National NGO Forum, but of course we continue thanking him for his commitment to ensuring that this country is a better place and for all of us. I want to ask you this. You mentioned about civic engagement, and I want to believe, just like so many viewers out there, that one of the roles for which civil society organizations are founded is to ensure that you multiply the civic engagement. How far do you think that civil society organizations have gone ahead to achieve such a role of engaging citizens so that their civic awareness is up here?
Now, I think as civil society organizations, the primary connection is the citizens, the people. If you ever find any organization that is not connected to the people, please let us know, because then that is not an organization. So connecting to the people. So you hear people in our program, people talk about being people-centered, being citizen-centered. That is the primary place. Okay, that's the primary place. And as civil society organizations, we take solidarity with the people. Solidarity is our currency. Solidarity is our single most important renewable resource, and we connect with the people. Now, we also fully aware that, you know, we want to increase citizen agency. Some people will call it citizen agency, others will call it civic engagement, others will call it civic consciousness. But the point here of creating citizen agency is to enable citizens to be able to meaningfully live their lives, engage with their local council chairperson, be able to ask the question that they want to ask. That is it. We don't want a situation where citizens just say, government etuyambe. We want us to, where the citizens are empowered to the level that they can then be able to take on any government project, whether it's PDM, whether it's Ntandikwa, whatever it is, and you are giving money to this citizen who is civically conscious. Know that when I buy a cow, after 1 year it's going to give birth. When I put this, I want to do this. When my children are not at school, I need to go and engage with the school management committee. When I go to that school, last week I saw a vehicle bring medicine from the national medical stores. Now I've gone there today, they tell me the medicines are not there. I'm going to ask about this drug leakage. So you want a citizen. That's what I call citizen empowerment. And they will go and ask the medical staff, what happens? Why are you not at work? Because at the end of the day, the children, the teachers are paid, and they're paid by government. At the end of the day, you accepted them to be posted in that health facility, and you're paid a salary. And when you don't work, citizens should be able to ask you those questions. So a citizen who is civically conscious, a citizen who is civically empowered, is a citizen whose citizen agency is at a point that he or she can ask those questions. Now, make no mistake, civic engagement or education is vastly different from voter education. Okay, and voter education, Electoral Commission handles that, Uganda Human Rights Commission handles that, but it's also very thin. There's a very thin line between civic empowerment and voter education. But it's always important to understand that the two are different. And so any organization, once you carry the label of an NGO or a CSO, your primary contact with the people, your primary contact is creating civic consciousness, civic empowerment, and being able to, whether you are working with a circle, the idea is to create that economic empowerment, to ensure that citizens can make the right decisions.
Do you think the civil society organizations have done their best to achieve such a cardinal role?
I think civil society organizations have done their best, but of course, the whole concept of an NGO is an idea. 2 or 3 people come together, there's a problem, they want to address it, they form an organization. Okay. Now they have got to look for resources.
To support the
now,
program.
Government is resourced by taxes. NGOs are not resourced by taxes.
Yeah.
So NGOs are resourced by grants, well-wishers, money raised from community philanthropy and that kind of thing. So the greatest challenge that we do have now is the funding landscape has continued to shift. Just at the beginning of this year, USAID, which was perhaps the largest aid apparatus, is now dead. A number of other bilateral donors have since reduced their funding. Many of them for bolstering their military capabilities. Many of them because they have a war at their doorstep. Many of them are restructuring the way they want to look at things.
What do you think causes that in the first place?
And so there's less and less money that is coming to be available to civil society organizations. So if you take I always joke that, we've actually lived as civil society organizations, we've lived with very little money. We've lived on what you call a starvation life cycle. Yeah. Now, the demise of funding facilities like DGF, the demise of funding mechanisms like USAID, the reduction in the bilateral donors is simply, if it was a patient in intensive care unit, now the oxygen has been switched off. And so you find that a number of civil society organizations are not able to carry on their mission priority precisely because of the reduced funding. And we say, why is there a reduction in funding? There's a reduction in funding because generally, those who had money are becoming more inward looking. You hear of Make America Great Again. People are looking and people are asking, why should we send money to go across the borders to help that person in Butambala, to help that person in Acholi, or to help that person in Karamoja when we have a problem at hand?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to be able to send money to go and do peacekeeping in DRC
when you have no peace.
when you have a problem in Ukraine.
Yeah,
when
sure.
you have so people are becoming inward looking. And there's been a wave of your far right populist leaders who are more inward looking, who look at development differently, For quite some time, I always said that the country or the world relied on 3 Ds: development, diplomacy, and defense.
Yeah.
Now, development has been completely redefined, and now the world is really relying on only defense and diplomacy.
Thank you, Mr. Isooba.
So we move from 3D to 2D.
I have these 2 quick ones. First of all, you are fond, I don't mean you as Mr. Isooba, but I mean NGO world. You are fond of starting some programs, I should say, or efforts, and then out of the blue, you seem to drop them. And I will give you an example of the Citizens Compact on Electoral Reforms. Very wonderful document that I personally read some good years ago. And then what?
But I mean, as I said, the number of programs are formed to fit into a certain thing. And we're living in you have to understand that NGOs do their programs based on the context. I mean, if I was a businessman, today it said, I'm going to start producing bread. What I realized, no, maybe it makes sense to produce cakes. Then why shouldn't I move away from bread to cakes? Okay, so some of these programs, you say that it ended because it served its purpose.
But it didn't achieve the purpose for which it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's also how we want to measure whether, did you achieve, didn't you achieve?
Sure, yeah.
Sometimes, we're using different things.
You have those evaluation meetings and then
what
happens?
But I think as a sector, as I said, there are a number of things that one would have to look. Sometimes you don't have to blame the sector for moving from one program to another. It's because the person, perhaps the organization or the donor that was supporting that intervention may be stopped. Okay, because we do not raise our resources.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and so that's one. But also, we fail also having short-term resourcing. So as civil society organizations, we're calling upon donors to provide, unrestricted funding, to provide unrestricted funding, to provide multi-year funding as well. Okay, so that becomes important because some of the changes we are seeking are not changes that can be achieved in 1 or 2 years. They are long-term. Okay, so when you get support for 1 year, then you're going to have short intervention and then and move. But if you want to change for a long time or long trajectory, then you need to have resources that carry you for maybe 10 years. Okay, and that is not the kind of resources available for civil society organizations.
Grant-wise, you are disabled as a sector. What's your plan? and or adverse to the rest of the CSOs in terms of fundraising?
I think with the reduction of grants as they become less and less, we are totally persuaded that change in any case is really not going to come from the grants, even if they were to continue. That change is going to come from communities being able to take charge of their own development. Communities, much as sometimes we label them beneficiaries, they are not beneficiaries. But communities have got community assets. Communities have got money. Communities have got knowledge. Communities have got resources, skills, and communities have got relationships. And so what we're actually trying to evangelize around and speak to all of the CSO members, that we need to get a way of having to rethink. We have to reprogram our mind that we are not going to do work with a grant from USAID because it's not there. Now we're going to have to see how we leverage these community assets as a way of triggering community voice and community power. We're going to go in community X, be able to say how can we use the available small resources there to be able to do work there. Now, this is what sometimes we romantically call local community philanthropy, but it's about giving. We Ugandans, we are givers. We give for getting another wife, getting another husband, you know, a funeral, a wedding. Giving is part of our DNA.
Do they relate with the cause, in your view?
And so what you need to do is to be able to go to community X and they actually be able to relate to the cause. Then people will give to that cause. It doesn't have to be money. It can be time as well. And people are giving. And we've seen this work out in some communities where, you know, we have a good example that I often make reference to. I think I can't remember, somewhere in Western Uganda where there was a small facility. There's no electricity. They're not connected on the electric grid. The nurses the midwives can only work during the day. If you want to give birth at night, you're almost signing a death certificate. Communities came together with a bit of our support and mobilization, and they bought just one solar panel and a battery, and then they have a bulb, and are able to charge their phones, they're able to charge their equipment, and that changes the life. And they will be able to make that kind of contribution. They'll be able to make that. So you need to make sure there's a connection. You're not just going to drop from the moon and say, oh, I'm going to do this program in Mukono. You know, development must have a contextual flavor.
Okay. I have these last two questions for you, Mr. Isooba, and of course, not forgetting to thank you for your time. I have this one. People continue to say that the Uganda's CSOs are not as, in quotes, shrewd as some of the countries, especially, and they want to draw a line between you and, or rather a yardstick between you and Kenyan civil society organizations. What's your comment? Are you shrewd enough?
I mean, I don't even any sector.
People think, second, Mr. Isooba, people think that the Kenyan civil society organizations was so shrewd enough to even, in quotes, compel His Excellency Arap Moi to even, you know, leave power, and you haven't done enough
but
to them.
That is a wrong narrative. That's a wrong narrative. Okay, let me start by first of all saying that civil society should never be shrewd, because shrewd in itself is negative. Yeah, civil society should never be shrewd. Now, where we've actually seen these comparisons, oh, you say, oh no, in Kenya because of that, you know, these are citizens that are coming on their own volition, and they haven't been mobilized by civil society organizations. So we should not be giving credit. Oh, you know, are you the one who did this? No. And so, you know, the work of civil society organizations would be to work with the community. They'll be able to understand what the issues are at hand. They are civically empowered. They'll be able to interface with their leaders and ask these difficult questions. I think as a country, we have a very vibrant sector. I mean, I would be talking about vibrance rather than being shrewd. Yeah. I think we've got a fairly vibrant sector. Never mind that because of the multiple negative narratives, sometimes it affects the sector here. But I think we have generally a vibrant sector. I've seen a number of countries where the sector is not as vibrant as we are. And so as a country, we have a vibrant sector. As Uganda National NGO Forum, we have a vibrant sector that is working in the prevailing conditions to be able to create the development agenda for this country.
In specifically speaking, what do you think is causing this country to lag behind in specifics when it comes to human rights violations, economic disempowerment, and the rest? What do you think could be the problem?
Well, I think it's multiple things that lead to us where we are, and depending on who you are talking to. You know, if you ask an economist, he perhaps would give a different answer, because as a country we are going to middle income. Now say, oh, but you cannot go into middle income when you are lagging. Yeah. When you go into communities, sometimes then you find that the social indicators are depressingly poor. We have some communities where people still store a fire. And then storing fire means you get this log and then put it in the ash. And the reason you are doing that,
what they call kuvumbika, like you get
the reason you are doing that simply because you can't
even afford a
matchbox. Yes. So we have some of those instances. We have some of those instances where people can't afford malaria treatment, where people can't afford a net, where people can't, even when the government provides, you know, free primary education, people can't afford a big pen and textbook and, you know, taking their children to school. They can't afford sanitary pads for children. So we still have that. We still have that. And so if one was looking at lagging behind or moving forward using some of these indicators, then as a country, yeah, we have that as a challenge. We have got that as a challenge. But I think there are multiple things that all, you know contribute to that. But I think there are a number of things that government could quickly do to transform the country. I mean, one is that put this whole country on the national electric grid. Then you're going to be enabled, small people, you know, in there, to be able to have a small fridge that I can sell some cold drink. Okay, you know, people will start cottage industries. So you need to have, but we can't have a country where a large part of this country doesn't have the luxury, if I call it so, of being on a national electric grid. Okay, and that is a problem. You know, connect up this country with the road infrastructure. Okay, you know, even here in Kampala, we know one way of raising up the price of a plot is put a road.
But if I may remind you, Mr. Isooba, I remember back in the day, and it's on record, the president was moving, I think, in far east, and he found people in either Texas sub-region putting their, I think, oranges or coffee, you know, in the tarmac, and he's like, people, look.
Yeah. So, I mean, some
places have networks, but people don't know how to even use the networks, like you're saying, the infrastructure.
As you drive on there, people are doing that. But you see, sometimes you don't want to look at the victim and begin to say, oh no, why are you doing that?
Coffee on the tarmac.
Okay. Yeah, you see, it starts from the household. If this person had a good household, where, you know, agriculture extension officers have been around, they've taught this person, you put up in Uganda, they call it a katindiro, you can dry your things there. Why would he go to dry his thing here? So that's the challenge, that we sometimes we blame these people.
The victim
and say, okay, where the people are drying coffee there? Where are the extension officers?
Yeah, sure.
At the district, at the sub-county. Why are they not supporting it? Say, no, you can actually do this differently.
I have this as your last question, Mr. Isooba. Next year, a few days from now, 15th Jan, Uganda is headed to a general election, in particular presidency, local council, and of course parliamentarians. What's your call to action to these three civil society organizations, general citizenry, and the government?
I think, one, as I say, you don't need a PhD or the Holy Spirit to know now that we've had a fairly peaceful campaign. I mean, in 2024, when everybody mentioned up 2025, you thought it was going to be the end of the world. But we are here today, is the 24th of November. We are now counting days to elections, and we have calmness. The invitation to everybody in this country, and everybody who, you know, values this country, that we need to have peace. I mean, going to the ballot to select a leader is not a point, is not a thing of do or die. People should be allowed to settle their agenda, and then one should make a difference, whether I want Musoke to be the member of parliament, or I want Kato to be the member of parliament, or I want so-and-so to be my woman member of parliament. There should be a decision. It doesn't have to shed blood. It doesn't have to cause, you know, any hemorrhage. And I think my invitation that government, us as citizens, need to continue on this trajectory. Okay? I mean, I see a number of people asking, the elections have been quiet. What's happening? Say, what? Is it because sometimes it's like
You want them to be too loud.
somebody who has been used to an abusive husband,
Yeah, sure.
and therefore when the husband
you
doesn't
begin to
beat
suspect,
you,
is she about to poison me or
you
what?
see,
Why is this person so
or
quiet?
does he have another wife? No, I think this government doesn't have another wife. I think the government is trying to be civil, and my invitation to the government, please be civil. Nobody should be beaten. The police should do its work. The military
People
should say
suspect
whatever
their
they
silence.
say, and let's vote. And elections finish, and everybody goes to his work.
That's the government.
And then,
Citizens.
Citizens, it is your constitutional and civic duty to choose the leaders that you want to govern you. So come 15th and the other elections that are going to come, people should come out and vote. Don't take it as a public holiday to go to the beach and then the evening you are switching on. No, go.
Like, are you sure? So and so.
Go and make that one vote makes a decision. So go and vote.
To civil society.
So we've actually had incrementally, our voter turn up reducing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We need now to have it raised up. People making a decision. And the civil society organizations, despite the reduced funding that we do have available, we need to continue engaging with citizens. We need to continue engaging with the government because we are the bridge between the state and the citizens.
Our viewers, a lawyer, I say, I have nothing useful to add. Catch you next time. Norman to him, Mr. Signs out.
Thank you so much. It's nice to work with you.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.